Good morning, Space Monkeys. Welcome to Political Fight Club. I'm Robert Durden, and in this episode I'm going to do an update on the shooter and the shooting from yesterday, what we know about him, and a quick correction just to start off. I reported from The Guardian via MSN yesterday as the updates were coming in that his name was Salvador Ramos. It's Ramos, and I figured that was a typo. That link that I put in the video yesterday doesn't work anymore, so they just retracted, and it's now been corrected. So it's Salvador Ramos, 18 years old. I'm going to tell you what we know about him and the guns that he used, and then we're going to move on to something a little more lighthearted. Hillary Clinton and the walls closing in on her. Robbie Mook, her campaign manager, has spilled the beans to a jury that in fact she may have planted that Trump-Alfa bank story. And if you guys remember, I went on to the General Strike Summit and I talked about the Hunter Biden laptop story being real and being censored because it was real and damaging to Joe Biden, and how the Trump-Alfa bank story was in fact fake and possibly even planted by Hillary Clinton to hurt Trump before the 2016 election. And I got dragged up and down Twitter for that shit. All the boutique lefties came after me. Huge accounts came after me. And now we can tell why I was right and they were wrong. And will they ever apologize? Will they ever correct? No. They're not looking for truth. They're looking to go after people like me who damaged the Democratic Party in the most devastating way possible. But you know what? You hit a dirt and sometimes it bleeds on you. So anyway, we're going to talk about that second. And then lastly, we're just going to spend about 5 minutes talking about a debate that happened yesterday. SocialistMMA, or Nick Cruz from Revolutionary Blackout Network, who's brilliant guy, he went up against Destiny, talking about if America's a fascist country or not. Now, they didn't spend the entire time talking about that. It was largely, the first half especially, was largely about, like, defund the police. And Nick literally took Destiny to school, so I'm going to do a quick update on that, and I highly recommend you watch that for yourself. It was a really good debate. Very educational, let's just put it that way, especially for Destiny. Anyway, let's talk about the tough stuff first. The shooter yesterday, I'm going to read to you here from MSN, so there might be some typos. What we know so far about the gunman: Salvador Ramos was the quiet type who hinted on social media about an attack, purchased 2 assault weapons after he turned 18. And they will clarify it was literally right after he turned 18. It is the latest mass gun killing in the U.S. and the worst school shooting in nearly a decade. The mass shooting began when the suspect shot his own grandmother, who survived, according to the authorities. He then crashed his car near to the Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas, a town around 80 miles west of San Antonio, before launching on a bloody rampage which ended with him being shot by police. Governor Greg Abbott said Ramos had been a student at Uvalde High School and a resident of the community of some 16,000 people. There he launched a bloody rampage that ended with him being shot dead by police. The motive was not immediately clear. In a bid to find a motive for the horrific attack, police are studying his 2 social media accounts. The teenage gunman had hinted on social media that an attack could be coming, according to State Senator Roland Gutierrez, citing state police. He noted that Ramos, who said he was born in North Dakota, had bought 2 assault weapons after turning 18. Before heading to the school, Ramos opened fire at his grandmother with 2 military-style rifles he purchased on his birthday, Senator Gutierrez said. Quote, "That was the first thing he did on his 18th birthday," he said. U.S. President Joe Biden later said, quote, "The idea that an 18-year-old kid can buy assault weapons is wrong." Which, yeah, I agree with him there, but Biden sending assault weapons to a whole bunch of teenage Ukrainians so long as they say that they're okay fighting Putin. So it's like, yeah, if you're a Ukrainian that wants to fight against Putin, here's an assault weapon, here's some Kevlar vest, and get out there. Here's a war I created for you. So I'm just pointing out the hypocrisy of Joe Biden. Anyway, we'll have updates as they come out. I'll kind of get them to you as we find out, but the weapons used in the actual shooting were confirmed here on Yahoo. I have it. I'm not going to read too much of it. It was an AR-15 and a handgun have been confirmed by police. And as you guys know, an AR-15 is an assault rifle that's extremely popular in the United States. There were 21 deaths. 18 kids and 3 teachers were the original numbers. I've seen other numbers that say that it was 2 teachers, but you get the idea. It's horrible. We'll have more details as the day goes on. So anyway, Is Congress going to do anything about this? No, they are not. No, they are not. And I'd like to also kind of go off on a small tangent here. The race between the NRA-backed Henry Cuellar in Texas, the runoff that he had with Jessica Cisneros, on the day that the shooting happened in Texas, the guy that gets an A grade from the NRA, who also is pro-life when it came to the Roe v. Wade stuff, he still won, it seems. It was very, very close. It was like 50.1 to 49.9. I think he won by... They both had 22,000 and change, and he won by like 150 votes total. That was via the New York Times this morning. It seems that Cisneros is going to, hold her ground. We'll see what actually happens, but Cuellar is saying that he's won. He's come out publicly and said that he won. So we'll just have to see how that plays out. And that's, if it's true, it's heartbreaking. I know that Cisneros ran a very good campaign, a much better campaign than somebody like Nina Turner. She actually had a very strong ground game. But it's sad because it's like, okay, in the wake of the Roe v. Wade scare, where all the women in this country are worried they're about to lose their right to their own bodies, and the day of a horrible school shooting, the NRA-backed and pro-lifer seems to have still won in the primaries in Texas. So we'll just have to see. I'll update you if anything changes on that as well. And that's why I didn't predict who was going to win that one, because I thought it was going to be close, and it was very, very close. Regardless of what happens, it's a very close runoff. So I hope Cisneros actually pulls it off, but it seems unlikely. All right, let's talk about something a little bit more happy. We're going to read to you here from Bloomberg about Hillary Clinton and the walls closing in. Now, when Bloomberg starts reporting stuff like this, and the Wall Street Journal also reported on this, when all of these basically pro-elitist, pro-corporate, certainly pro-Democrat outlets start saying that Hillary Clinton is definitely linked with this false story, safe to say it's been confirmed. Let's just put it that way. And of course it would be. We're going to find out more and more. It's going to be interesting to see exactly how linked Hillary Clinton actually is, but this is why I brought it up on the General Strike Summit, and this is why I also got dragged for it, because I think a lot of these boutique lefties knew that I was telling a lot of truth that was really inconvenient for the Democrats on that summit. So let's read you here from Bloomberg about how Robbie Mook, who is the campaign manager for Hillary Clinton, is now admitted to a jury that Hillary Clinton gave the okay to plant the Fusion GPS story about Trump being linked to a Russian bank. Like, his server was linked to a Russian bank called Alfa Bank. And the way that we reported on this originally, because all we knew about it, was that Hillary Clinton's lawyer, who is literally being paid by Hillary Clinton, Michael Sussman, he lied under oath to the FBI about being on the Clinton payroll. And we know he was at Perkins Coie, which was the Hillary Clinton law firm at the time, and he ran this false story with all this false data about Trump being linked to the Alfa Bank, Russian bank, through Fusion GPS firm, and then it eventually found its way into the hands of Franklin Foer at Slate. And without doing any backup research, he ran with it as if it was gospel, and then lo and behold, it drops on Slate, and what happens? Hillary Clinton retweets it and goes, hey, well, what do you know? And I always suspected that possibly she planted it, had it run through her minions, end up in a publication that is pro-Democrat, and then she retweets it even though she knows it's completely bogus. And now we seem to have more evidence that that was the case. I'll let you know more as more comes out. This is from Bloomberg. Hillary Clinton approved Trump-Russia leak to media, her campaign manager says. This is by Eric Larson. Hillary Clinton personally signed off on a plan in 2016 to quietly pitch to the media the now discredited theory that computer servers at Donald Trump's company had a secret communications link with a Russian bank, her former campaign manager told a jury. Robbie Mook, a witness in the trial of former Clinton campaign lawyer charged with lying to the FBI, that's Michael Sussman, on Friday testified that he and others at the campaign, quote, weren't totally confident in the veracity of the server data, but they sent it to reporters anyway a few months before the election. Quote, all I remember is that she agreed with it, Mook said of Clinton. Quote, she thought we made the right decision. The purported server link between the Trump organization and Russia-based Alfa Bank was ultimately debunked by the FBI. Former campaign lawyer Michael Sussman is now on trial for allegedly lying to the FBI when he said he wasn't representing any client when he brought that claim to the agency's attention in September 2016. The server theory stemmed from the campaign's law firm, Perkins Coie, which got it from a small Washington-based research firm called Fusion GPS. Fusion pitched the theory and the underlying data at the behest of a prominent cybersecurity expert, Robert Joffe, who said he had mined publicly available communications data to identify the alleged link. Mook said he didn't know about Fusion's role until long after the election, but that he trusted the theory had come from seasoned experts. He also testified that neither he nor anyone else at the campaign directed Sussman to take the information to the FBI, and that the main focus was tipping off the media. That seemed justified because evidence of a suspected secret back channel between Trump and Russia, quote, was obviously incredibly alarming and concerning, Mook said. If true, he said, then, quote, that's probably something the American people should know when they vote. Mook said he believed reporters would verify the theory before publication. Not those reporters. Not the ones you guys gave it to. At the time, Trump's actions had raised questions, Mook said, including his making, quote, very favorable statements about Vladimir Putin. And that's all you need to do, right? You deviate from anything that is the CIA-driven narrative nowadays, and they'll just call you Putin puppet. So it's like, oh, there was very alarming rhetoric. And as we know, Trump, when he was in office, was very, like, hawkish towards Russia. Like, he was no Putin puppet. Anyway, this is interesting. I highly recommend you read the entire article, the Wall Street Journal article as well. And I think that one's hilariously titled, like, Hillary Clinton did it, which is so funny. So the walls are closing in. It appears as though, according to Robbie Mook, campaign manager for Hillary Clinton, Hillary gave the okay to run with this, even though they had not verified the data. And Mook himself denies that he ever verified the data and just, assumed that it had been verified by experts. It was completely fraudulent. The FBI figured that out. And Michael Sussman, Hillary Clinton's lawyer, lied about being on Hillary Clinton's payroll when he was running with this story to the FBI. So it'll be interesting to see exactly how far this goes up the chain. It would be cool to find out that Hillary Clinton's going to get in some trouble for this. Me thinks she probably will not. So that is the unfortunate part. Anyway, last thing I'd like to talk about here is the debate between Destiny and SocialistMMA, Nick Cruz from RBN. And the clear winner in this one, it really wasn't so much a debate as it was a literal, like, tutoring session. The debate seemed to me to be between somebody who actually lives poor and understands the plight of workers and, like, Destiny, who's obviously a rich white kid who lives in a neoliberal bubble and doesn't have to worry about money. So Nick actually more or less schooled Destiny, and it was a very productive conversation. And I'd like to give Nick mad props. He does a great job at keeping his cool, and he treats Destiny in a way that isn't trying to dunk on him. He's trying to, like, educate him, and that's an extremely valuable asset when you're trying to debate somebody. There are some people that I think that just go out there and they're not really worth trying this on. Like, if you were debating Vosh, it'd be very tough because Vosh doesn't want to learn anything. I don't know if Destiny falls quite into the category of shitlib that Vosh does, but he at least seemed to be listening, right? He might be doing a little bit of the Vosh stuff where he's trying to work backwards from his conclusion, but at least he seemed to listen, and Nick did a really good job of basically playing teacher and teaching Destiny about how not most people, especially poor people, are for defunding the police. They talk about this for the first half of the debate or so. They're talking about, is America a fascist country? And they spend a lot of time on defund the police at the beginning. And Nick is basically making the point that most poor people kind of see the police as more of a nuisance and a way to keep us under control. And Destiny keeps kind of alluding to, well, he doesn't want crime out of control. And if you completely defund the police, then there will be no police. And then there will be crack everywhere. He even says that. It's like, that is a very, like, privileged point of view to have. If you're the type of person in this country that sees the police as anything other than a nuisance that's looking to either pull you over for no reason or to brutalize you for no reason or to attack activists at protests, then you are a privileged rich person. So it really showed a contrast between the two of them. There are some people that they think defunding the police is going to cause a crime wave. Police in this country don't really fight crime all that much. You want to fight crime, fight poverty. It's a very privileged and, if I may say so, a white privileged point of view to look at the police as anything other than a militarized lapdog force that is meant to keep poor people in line. That's the way I see them. That's the way, of course, Nick Cruz sees them, and he's correct. So it exposes Destiny as being kind of like, and we knew this, like kind of like a rich kid, you know, and he argues very much like that. So the rest of the debate was great as well. I highly recommend you'll actually check it. Nick won the debate, but again, his style is different in that he isn't really trying to dunk on Destiny. He's trying to educate him, and it turned out very much like a tutoring session. The other thing that I'd like to point out that is bogus, that Destiny says over and over and over again, and especially when they're talking about defund the police, is that it's just not, you know, you can't get progressive policies done because they're not popular, he says, over and over and over again. And my retort to that is Medicare for All is a 65 to 70% issue across the board, and there are certain polls that say that more than half of Republicans are on board for universal health care. And he would know this if he actually talked to anybody that was outside of his rich kid bubble. If you talk to Republicans and Democrats, which I do all the time in my time off, I'm always talking politics, and most of the people I hang out with are very poor. All of them want universal health care. Another one is legalizing marijuana across the board, and that's a progressive policy, and that's extremely, extremely popular. Protecting the First Amendment and being against censorship, that is a progressive policy, but right-wingers and left-wingers both are on board for that stuff. And if you explain to people that are ignorant about what's going on with Julian Assange on the right wing, a lot of people that are on the right wing definitely want Julian Assange to have the charges dropped against him. So there's plenty of things that are progressive that are absolutely popular. So that would be my retort to somebody like that. And to assume that they're not getting passed because they're not popular, because Destiny thinks that the Democrats are doing everything they can to get things done, but he buys into the rotating villain and that there's just a gridlock in Congress when there's not. He assumes that there's not enough support for these things, and therefore they're not getting passed. No, they're not getting passed because they have popular support, but the people that we have put in office to get them implicated or legislated, like Nancy Pelosi, have like a favorability rating of like 25% or 30%. The Democrats don't get these things done because they work for their rich donors. It has nothing to do with there not being enough popular support for Medicare for All. And if you want further evidence, the guy that was running on Medicare for All, Bernie Sanders, had by far the most small dollar donations of any candidate by a long shot. By a long shot. So these things are popular. It's weird that Destiny doesn't know that, and again, it doesn't surprise me, I guess, because the bubble that he's in, if he's talking to nothing but rich neoliberals who already have good insurance, they're of course going to be like, well, they're not going to get Medicare for All done because, of course, it's not a popular idea. The people just aren't ready for universal health care. I think the favorability of legalizing marijuana is even higher than that across the board, and they can't get that done. And if I may, also, Destiny makes the point that, well, they still got to play politics to get these things done. How would the progressives actually get these things done, is a question he asks. Easy. You do Tea Party tactics to leverage Joe Biden to do them via executive order. That's as easy as it gets. I'll elaborate. Joe Biden can give everybody Medicare for All right now via Section 1881-alpha of the Social Security Act, which is part of Obamacare. If there's an environmental hazard, you can give everybody Medicare for All. He already did this for Texas when Texas had their power grid go out due to that huge blizzard because it was an environmental hazard. Libby, Montana has this because of, I believe it's asbestos. They have Medicare for All and always will because they have an environmental hazard that made it into their water supply. Now, he can do this via executive order. So all you got to do if you're the squad is you say, Joe Biden, you will get nothing passed because we're going to block everything. We've got enough to block everything with the way that Congress is set up right now. You only need 5, and they have at least 6, depending on who you want to count as the squad members. They could get this. They could also get him to legalize marijuana via executive order. very popular, right? There's not a lot of steps involved. You don't have to abolish the filibuster. You don't have to, go around the parliamentarian. You don't have to do any of that. You play Tea Party tactics. Shoot the hostage when you have to. Shoot down some bills and say, listen, we're going to give you the John Boehner treatment. We're going to literally melt your mind, melt your brain even more than it's already melting, Joe Biden, if you don't do these things. And again, you could have Joe Biden drop the charges against Julian Assange. He can do that unilaterally. And that's something, again, because people across the board believe in the First Amendment and the freedom of the press, that even a lot of right-wingers believe that Julian should not be in prison for the rest of his life or given a 175-year sentence for simply exposing the war crimes that the United States perpetrated in Iraq and Afghanistan. So I don't know if Destiny just hasn't thought much about this, but that's an easy way to do it. And you may not get anything done. Even if you do Tea Party tactics, you may not actually get Biden to do any of those things, but you can at least make his life hell and come out publicly and show how you're trying to leverage, for this, in this instance, the President of the United States, who has a majority in Congress, to get some things done or do executive orders. But they're not doing that. They're not coming out publicly. They're not doing Tea Party tactics. They're snuggling up to Mama Bear and going into hibernation mode. So it was a great performance by SocialistMMA. I highly recommend you watch the whole thing. I will post a link to the RBN stream right after this. And it's a good conversation, too. It's not a